Well, a controversial public service announcement taking on youth tackle football, comparing it to the dangers of smoking.
Tackle football is like smoking. The younger I start, the longer I'm exposed to danger. You wouldn't let me smoke. When should I start tackle?
Oh boy, but is this a fair comparison? Here to weigh in are former NFL stars Merril Hoge, who played 8 seasons as a running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers and Chicago Bears, and Jack Brewer, who played 5 seasons, 2 of which were with my Minnesota Vikings, as well as for the New York Giants, Eagles, and Arizona Cardinals. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us this morning. Merril, I'll start with you. This idea that we're scaring kids away and parents away from tackle football, likening it to smoking, what do you say?
Well, it's irresponsible and self-serving, and it lacks all kinds of integrity. There is absolutely no scientific evidence that football causes CTE. The pattern itself, there is absolutely no consensus on that from a scientific perspective. It's still in an observation state. If you look at the pattern of CTE, where it's been discovered in baseball players, basketball players, soccer, rugby, football, rodeo, BMX bike. But the most important thing, a third of the cases in the medical journal that have this pattern CT never played sports, never had a history of head trauma, and never had a concussion. That is why it is still in the observation state. And if you have any integrity whatsoever, that is the only thing you can say about it. To create a PSA like this, shaming parents, really tells you the lack of integrity and the incompetence behind the people who are putting on the PSA.
Jack, you know, Merril wrote a book on this. There's a lot of science on this. Parents look at this, they don't know what to believe. Is it safe for my kids or not? And then something like this comes out and says it's like your kid smoking a cigarette at the age of 8. What do you make of it, Jack?
Listen, I started playing football at 6 years old, born and raised in Texas, and the game's done a whole lot for me, and I wouldn't take anything back from it. But with that same point, you know, I know I have a bunch of buddies that are 28, 29, 30, 35, who can't remember anything, are suffering in their bedrooms right now from taking hits. And listen, most kids that start playing football at 7, 8, or 9 years old probably won't end up playing up into their 20s. So I don't think that's a fair comparison. But I can tell you right now, if you start laying hits at 6, 7 years old and then last all the way through your 30s into the NFL, you're probably going to have some head issues. And so I don't completely agree with Merril on that. But at the same time, there has been a lot of tests and studies, and I've done a tremendous amount of research on concussions and talked to some pretty high-level neurologists. And, you know, if you continue to hit your head over and over again, you're going to have issues. And I believe that, you know, 99% of the people that they have actually tested for CTE, because you can't test for it until you actually die at this point. But 99% of football players have been positive of CTE. Yes, there have been CTE in other individuals, but CTE can be caused over a lifetime from dementia and all other kind of neurological disorders. So
a lot of different things. Merril, before I go to you, here's a quote from the study from the Concussion Legacy Foundation. They said kids who start tackle football at age 5 are 10 times more likely to wind up with CTE than kids who start at 14. That's the argument this ad is making. Have your kids play flag football till 14 and they'll be better off. What do you say?
Well, first of all, I can give you 7 pieces of scientific literature that would refute that. It tells you the complete opposite. They've tried to replace and reduplicate what Boston University is saying, and nobody can do it. Great institutions, by the way. 7 papers versus 1 paper. And when they talk about flag is safer than tackle, that is absolutely completely wrong. There's just as many head incident rates in flag and more injuries in flag because there is no equipment. And when Jack's talking about head trauma, listen, you can have head trauma and have issues from head trauma, and there's ways to care for that and repair that. To say that it is causing CTE is irresponsible. There's no scientific evidence of that. And when you say you have people that can't remember what they're doing, look at the lifestyle too. Accountability for drugs, alcohol, opioids, inactivity, sugar consumption, all are contributors to our brain health. To ignore lifestyle and to blame it on football and to have players say, oh, it's football, but then you look at their their lifestyle, and that's not accounted for, there is a greater indicating of brain health and overall health than a contact sport
Jack,
that you play,
you know,
especially with the ability to care for it today.
Jack, what about the fact that a lot of us feel like we're just living in this safety culture where everyone's got to wear ride your bike, wear a helmet, don't go out alone, don't do any, I mean, we're coddling kids, and now you can't play football, a great American sport, until you're 14, 15, 16, you got to play flag football. I mean, at what point does this stop and we just put everyone in a rubber room and tell them they're okay?
Pete, listen, you can ask any kid or any parent that I coach. I'm not into the powder puff stuff. But what I am into is for common sense. And so for me to sit here and say that it's common sense to have my 6 or 7-year-old going in, taking on ISOs, I'm not going to sit here and say that's the best thing for him. To me, that's common sense. And I think for a kid to start playing football later in life, it does make sense. And to Merril's point, previously, I went to college with a whole bunch of partiers who drank and smoke, and we did all kind of crazy stuff. But those folks that didn't play football are not the ones that are having the memory loss and having the issues where I'm having to put them in a psychiatric ward and trying to help them kind of push through their lives. I'm seeing this stuff every day, and so I just completely disagree with that statement.
Merrill and Jack, thank you both.
Well,
go ahead, real quick, Merrill.
Well, I'm just going to tell Jack, I've got 3 dear friends all suffering from dementia. None of them ever played sports. When you look at the scientific facts and information, there's no scientific evidence that's going to say that early exposure to any type of sports or contact sports is going to have issues later in life with kids. There's no scientific evidence of that. And you can't keep saying that because you have a few cases. Instead of, pointing it on football and blaming football, let's get them help.
Well, we got to leave it right there, gentlemen. You both know what you're talking about. You lived it. You've been there. And listen, I've only played high school football, and you guys did the real deal. So thank you, gentlemen, both. Have a great Sunday. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.